Thank you, Undersecretary González, for sharing with us your vision on Chile's economic and mining agenda. A big round of applause for the Undersecretary. And thank you as well, Mr. Diego Mazzola, for your introduction and for Scotiabank's continued support of ChileDay. And now we will pass to this panel. We will invite the panelists to come and sit in here while I will introduce them. We will have in this panel to discuss about Chile's role in the global economy, where mining is one of the key and best, better industries to support and develop our country. Chile is the world's largest producer of copper and the second largest producer of lithium, two minerals that are absolutely central to the energy transition, electrification, and the technologies that will shape the coming decades. Toronto is, in turn, the recognized global capital of mining finance, the city where exploration is funded, where mining companies are listed, and where long-term capital meets the projects that will define the future of the industry. So, welcome, Mr. Panelist. Please join us. We'll present you while you came here to the stage. We will be joining Amparo Cornejo. She's the Chief Sustainability Officer of Teck. Mr. Mario Larenas, Country Manager of Chile, Freeport-McMoRan. Patricio Hidalgo, Chief Executive Officer of Anglo. And Orest Wowkodaw, Equity Analyst for the mining industry at Scotiabank. Welcome to this panel. Okay. We will share between English and Spanish, so it's a bilingual panel. Yeah. So, the mining sector has been an active participant of the Chilean economy with different kind of stages, and for many years the mining industry in Chile was questioned because of its impact in the environment, because of the labor problems that they have to face, because the usage of water supply, because of its extractivism activity. And for the last 2 decades, at least or more, the industry has been facing these challenges, working on trying to improve the sustainability. And I may say that today the mining sector in Chile is probably the best reputed industry in terms of sustainability, in terms of the support that it has from the public. And it has been an amazing reshape of the commitment of the general public regarding the contribution of the mining sector to Chile. So I would like to start with the 3 representatives of the different companies that we have here to share with us how your companies has been supporting the development of your projects in Chile, how you have been working to gain better contact with the communities and with all these new challenges that we have been facing for the industry and for the country and for the world. So, Amparo, probably you may start.
Okay, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. I think participating in ChileDay is always a very good instance for the mining industry. Being part of this panel is quite a good opportunity to discuss. And also I would like to mention that maybe this year is quite important. First of all, not only for the price of copper and the spectacular situation that mineral criticals are facing, but also because this is the first ChileDay for the new government. And for us as Teck, maybe it might be one of the last ChileDays as Teck, as own company. As you know, we are advancing our merger with Anglo, so maybe for the next ChileDay in Toronto, it's going to be Anglo, not Teck. So
we will have one less panelist in the
yes, yeah. we will do like Kachipuri. We will will see who will be. Now, but now, so I think it's a very good opportunity also to share about the story and the connection between the Canadian mining industry and the country. But going to your question, Guillermo, I agree with you. I think 10 years ago, the industry had, the conversation around mining was super negative, I would say. When you engage with different parts of the society, usually the reaction was quite negative. Today, we have seen a big effort. I would say this has not happened by coincidence. I think the industry has done a strong effort to connect, to engage with the society, to work very closely with the communities where we operate, and also through different efforts like through Consejo Minero, CESCO, different instances where we have been able to share what the industry does and to share the best practices. So I think it has been a good journey. Having said that, I also believe that it's always very fragile. So we need to be always aware of that. Mining has a big impact. We are disruptive in the territories where we operate. That is a reality. So we shouldn't take for granted that strong support and relation. I think we need to continue working on daily basis on that.
Patricio, your view on that?
No, thanks, Gigi. I think, first of all, thanks to the organizers for inviting me again to ChileDay. It's a real pleasure to be back in Toronto, especially this time of the year. I was joking with Ambassador White that I was here a couple of months ago, and I literally, genuinely almost lost both my ears when I decided to go out walking in the open air. So it's really good to be back in Toronto, especially with this weather. And look, I think I'm going to repeat what I've been saying very openly and vocally in different audiences. I think the world is going to need a lot more copper than we produce. When you combine the effects of the electrification of the world in the back of the so-needed decarbonization of the world, when you look at the development of emerging economies, and when you look at the unprecedented growth of data centers in the back of AI, our estimate is that the world is going to need around 70% more copper than what we produce today by 2040. In simple terms, that's around 80 mines, the size of Los Bronces in Chile. And for those of you that do not know Bronces is already a massive mine. And I think the big challenge is 2040 in mining terms is just around the corner. I mean, when you look at the statistics, from the moment that you actually find an ore body to the time that copper comes to the market, it's taking us between 15 to 20 years to see the copper in the market, and that's just not tenable if, to the point that the Undersecretary raised this morning, if we have any chance to address global warming. So what are we specifically doing in this regard? I think we're focusing on three main things. One is sustainability, secondly on innovation, but with purpose, and thirdly on collaboration. On sustainability, I think it's been part of the theme in this conversation. I think never before earning the license to grow and earning the license to operate has been so existential and built on building trust with the key stakeholders. In our case, we recently launched our new sustainability strategy. It continues to be anchored across the three main pillars that we had before, which is how to become a trusted corporate leader, how to create thriving communities, and how to create a healthy environment. But I think the biggest shift was to make the decisions closer to the territories in which we operate, because we need to address the issues that we face. So for example, in the case of Chile, we've decided to play a bigger role in education. As we know, it's one of the main drivers for inequality in the country. With our pioneering model, we've been working with 46 schools, benefiting more than 17,000 students in order to bring them up in their academic performance to the top quartile in the different territories in which we operate. We made a very deliberate decision, something that is unprecedented, or we believe is unprecedented in the country. We created the first national forum for accountability and sustainability, in which we brought more than 50 different participants from the NGOs, the communities, the academia, and we talk about the controversial issues. We talk about glaciers, we talk about water, we talk about tailings, because we need to understand what are we doing well and what we need to do better. From an operational standpoint, we're already committed to stop using fresh water at Los Bronces by 2030, and we're actually embarked in a desalination plant, which is going to start giving us water this year, but also is going to provide water to the communities in which we operate. And we've been operating on renewable energy since 2021 in all our managed operations. On innovation, I'm not going to dwell too much on this because I think we're going to talk about it during the session, but at a high level, we've invested heavily across the value chain, being on exploration, in the remote operation centers, AI, on autonomy and the likes, and also on some sustainability initiatives, which I'm going to refer to later on. And I think finally, collaboration has been a key theme in our case, and I think Amparo sort of touched on that before, but we're really looking at collaboration to unlock synergies, and I think we have two really good examples when you look at the synergies between Andina and Los Bronces in the central part of Chile. Through that joint mine plan and this public and private collaboration, we'll be able to unlock 2.7 million tons of copper, which otherwise we wouldn't be able to mine by just mining smarter. We can do this with little or no capital. So when the industry is moving to $30,000 a ton, this is going to cost us nothing. We can do it faster. We can actually do it within this administration. I really have to say that. It's really important. We can do that within this administration, subject to permits. And we're going to create around $5 billion of value. That's 75% of that value will remain with the state of Chile. And because we're making smarter use of the infrastructure, actually, we're going to do it in a more sustainable way. And obviously, the merger of equals between Anglo and Teck, which is going to create a critical minerals powerhouse, will allow us to unlock value in a way that is going to create value in the industry and specifically in Chile, because the main driver of that synergy is in the potential synergies between Quebrada Blanca and Collahuasi. We would be able to unlock around 175,000 tons of copper per year to increase value by around $1.4 billion in EBITDA, and obviously with the sustainability credentials that both Anglo and Teck have demonstrated over the years.
Okay, thank you. Mario, your view on this?
Thank you, Guillermo, first of all, and ChileDay organizer for the invitation. And it's a pleasure also to share this panel with the Undersecretary, with Orest, and of course with my friends Amparo and Patricio. According to the structure that we have in Chile on the mining industry, one of the great things that we have is that we can collaborate in many different aspects. And that is part of the way in we have been shaping the new mining industry in Chile. You and also Amparo and Patricio were talking about this new mining industry that we have probably from the early 90s. And I would say that the key factor that have been shaping the new mining is security, okay? We are not always successful for that, but we always have the same target of trying to reduce to zero fatalities and also big accidents. And that is a kind of sacred principle where we find ourselves with a lot of pride on that because we have been a benchmark for other industry. Mm-hmm. And very close to that, the new thing about this is that we're taking a lot of care of our workforce. And also we have been an important driver to raise the environmental standards as well as all that is related to the relation with the community surrounding our areas, even beyond the legal requirement that exists. So it's good that they start from there. This has supposed a shift. And in these days, and something that you mentioned as well, we have a new aspect that gives more more relevance to mining, which is that copper is the most important or the best conductor of electricity, and therefore is essential for the fight to climate change. And obviously this gives, this supposes like ethical imperative, let's say, to produce the copper that is so important for that objective, taking always into consideration security, the well-being of our people, environmental and community. And you know, in the past we have been as an industry a little bit shy, when we have not been very good in communicate what we do. We work very good between us, the mining companies, but again, we have been shy and And in order like to move out from that mentality, things like coming here to ChileDay and share with other audience is part of what we want to do to make more visible all the things that we do. Fortunately, we have been communicating a little bit better, and this you can reflect that in the acceptance, the recognition that the population have now about the mining industry, which is much better than decades ago. As a matter of fact, last year, COPESA had a survey where 75% of the people that participated there think that the mining industry is the industry that is more important in terms of progress. And this is consistent as well to what is happening from international standpoint. There was like a survey from the International Mining and Metals and that shows that out of 33 or 32 countries, Chile ranked second in the place where the population recognized the contribution on the mining industry, which is pretty different to what happened in other places. And that obviously is also concern to us because in this global market, I think that the mining industry in general needs to work harder in order to change that. And obviously, this new mining industry creates a situation in which the population, the state, and everyone has some higher appetite to attract investment in terms of mining. And we have been hearing a lot of this during this panel, that we, the Chilean, the perception that we have of ourselves is much worse than the perception that the people, the other countries have about us, because they still really recognize how strong our institutions are, our policies are. And in terms of the company that I represent in Chile, this whole environment, this social acceptance, as well as being able as a country to navigate from tough times. I don't know if you're aware that in the last decade we faced a few challenges, and now we're doing, we were able to somehow solve that. We decided after decades of working on that to submit an environmental impact assessment to the continuity of El Abra. El Abra is an open pit mine that we operate we have been operating for 30 years. It's located at the northeast of Calama, and we have been working there 30 years, and we want to keep working for 40 years more. This is a massive project that we're very optimistic on this. If you go from the coast to the mountains, we have a desal plant that will produce a little less than 2,000 liters per second. Then we have a pipeline of 150 kilometers that takes the water to the place where we will have the concentrator and the tailings and storage facility. When you go to the site, which is something that I do from time to time, and you see at the mountain, and you see how they're going to put like the pipelines, you would admire what the project people can do. This is really impressive, and I wanted to mention because that's part of the sophisticated market that we have. So we're doing that. It's a big investment. It's an estimated investment of $7.5 billion. And the good thing about this also is going to bring some extra production. We will be having an incremental production of around 300,000 tons for 40 years. And this is very good to what the other were saying about the need. Yeah. But obviously, in order to make that real, we need to go through the environmental process. We want to do it in the right way, and that's why, in the first place, we submitted a very robust document. And after this RCA is processed and we have the sectorial permits, we will be able to take a decision if we go for that investment or not. I'm talking about sectorial permits. Just for you to give you an idea of how complex this is, we have identified over 5,000 permits that we need to process in order to do that. And as a matter of fact, a few months ago, I wrote like a column in El Mercurio. And even though I know that it's not very elegant to quote myself, especially consider that this document was published on February, a Monday, I will quote myself anyhow. And I will insist how important is that we can have good ancillary regulation to the sectorial permit law. That is a very good framework, that it has the potential to be a step forward in the mining industry. So we see now the scenario in which we can make real this big investment, but obviously demands a lot of work from our company and also from the state. So it's very good to hear the Undersecretary saying that how the government sees itself is a facilitator of this kind of investment.
Thank you, and I can confirm that the standards of security that the mining sector has been achieving in Chile is the best one compared to other industries. I sit in a couple of boards where we always compare the standards with the mining sector, and we have not been able to achieve it yet in port management and gas distribution. It's the standard that the other companies are looking to try to achieve. Orest, you look this industry from a different perspective as an analyst of investments, expert on this sector. And my question to you is, Canada has been the leading financial market for mining companies, and Chile has been a leading financial market within Latin America many years ago in terms of financial activity, IPOs, companies raising money in Chile. But we have never had a mining company, except for SQM probably and a couple of other minor cases, but the mining industry has not been an active participant of the Chilean capital market in terms of raising money and being a participant. How do you see this situation, and what were the strengths of TMX that did this hub for mining as successful, and lessons that we may bring to Chile to try to make our capital market more active for this sector?
Well, thank you, Guillermo, and thank you very much for having me here today. It's a real pleasure. And I think I'm the only panelist based here in Toronto, but I'm very familiar with Chile. I'm there twice a year to go see mining assets for several of the mining companies. In fact, sitting up here, I publish equity research on Freeport, Teck, and soon to be Anglo Teck, so I feel very at home up here with the panelists. You know, from my perspective, I've been a mining analyst for 25 years and certainly seen many cycles here in copper, but you know, what makes the TSX so special for mining companies and raising capital? I think there's several aspects of it. Some of them I think are easier to replicate, some are more difficult, but you know, maybe the first point is the TSX, there's an ecosystem here to support mining companies, and by that I mean there's large institutional investors, there's retail investors, there's sales, trading, equity, research professionals here, and plus all the services, the lawyers, the accountants, the banks are all based up here. So there's a real established ecosystem that's been here for many years that I think can be replicated, but takes time. Number two is the liquidity aspect of it. You know, having that infrastructure is one thing, but providing trading liquidity is much more difficult. And I think part of that is the nature of the type of investors that are based in different markets. So the TSX is a very liquid market for mining companies. Investors come from all over the world to buy mining stocks here because the liquidity is very good, so they can get in, they can get out. You know, I think one of the issues for Chile here is just you've got a lot of long-only pension, long-dated investors that don't tend to be that active from a trading perspective. So that's great for a mining company, but not great for liquidity with respect to equities. And so the liquidity aspect, I think, is challenging and will take time to grow, in my opinion. Another aspect that sort of makes the TSX so interesting is just it's also a route to easily list in other mining hubs. So having a TSX listing makes it fairly easy to list in places like Australia and the US as a secondary listing. It's relatively easy to transform your documents into a listing in those jurisdictions. And again, that's something that can be worked out, but takes time. And then I'd say that the regulatory environment here is very mining friendly. We have standardized a 43-101, so any mining company that lists here has to present their mining assets in a very structured form that is consistent across all commodities. And so investors, for the most part, can rely on what a 43-101 technical report will show with respect to the quality of the resource, reserve, mine plan, et cetera. It has to be signed off by QPs. So there's that established framework of quality that gives investors comfort when they buy a TSX mining stock. There's also, the TSX also allows, there's just many different ways to finance here, whether it's private placements, shelf deals, bought deals, subscription receipts, convertible bonds. There's lots of options that provide mining companies different avenues. And then finally, I'd say there's also an incubator mentality here in Canada. We have a lot of junior mining companies. There have been historically government incentives that allow these junior mining companies to raise capital more affordably through flow-through shares. So that's a big advantage, and that seeds the next generation of mining companies when then we see the mid-caps, large caps also invest in these junior companies to develop the next generation. So I think it's the combination of all these things. Probably the biggest challenge in my view for Chile would be the liquidity aspect of the market. Yeah. The rest of those things can be addressed with regulatory reform.
Yeah. Well, actually, for all of you that may not know the origins of ChileDay, the reason why we created Invest was to develop and to promote the Chilean capital market out of Chile. So this is what Orest has said. We have a long way to go in Chile in order to have a mining capital market developed, but the example of Canada has been always in our mind and something that we may analyze with deep tools to find out if we can do something like that here in our country. Álvaro, for you, the development of all these topics, and I will add in the financial market topic, we need to combine many different services and entities of the Chilean government. We need ports, we need electric transmission, we need permits, environmental impact, and we will need a capital market to finance. How do you deal, or how do you see the integration of your ministry with the other areas of the government, and how committed they are to work together to make this happen, with combining all the different areas that needs to be involved in order to make the mining project successful?
I'm going to switch to Spanish to be more accurate on what I'm going to expose. Ciertamente vemos, hay muchos temas interesantes que me gustaría intentar rescatar en la respuesta. Lo primero, respecto a la primera pregunta, efectivamente vemos un cambio de cómo los chilenos ven la minería. Yo creo que ha sido gracias efectivamente a un trabajo comunicacional que tenemos que cuidar mucho, que como señalaban es frágil, pero creemos que el sector minero se ha ganado el respeto en Chile, el orgullo, y también uno ve ahí una oportunidad de cómo como sector minero no solamente logramos transmitir que somos una actividad querida en Chile que tiene importancia a nivel interno, sino que lo que hemos comentado en este panel, tenemos el deber ético, el deber moral de producir mayor cantidad de cobre, de litio, de otros minerales críticos, porque es lo que nuestro planeta necesita para el futuro, para el proceso de descarbonización, transición energética y adelantos civilizatorios con la inteligencia artificial. Y ahí tenemos un desafío muy importante que uno podría incluso proyectar como una segunda etapa. Ese futuro no va a llegar sin el desarrollo de más minería, ¿ya? Eso es algo que hemos tratado de destacar mucho como gobierno, y también destacar las iniciativas, toda esa ganancia a nivel local por iniciativas como las educacionales, de desarrollo comunitario y otras que se han hecho. Yo realmente digo que no salga acá, pero digo, el Ministerio de Minería por la relación que tiene con las compañías mineras en todos sus segmentos, con todos los emprendedores mineros y todo el bienestar que traen a las localidades que se sitúan alrededor de ellos, que es un trabajo obviamente que hay que ir construyendo día a día. Es el ministerio más social de todos, uno podría decir, porque es un ministerio con un nivel de impacto en las comunidades y tenemos que estar orgullosos de eso y saber transmitirlo aún de mejor manera. Y parte de ese orgullo, ciertamente, son etapas, son pasos que uno debe también transitar hacia otro tipo de, por ejemplo, de mercados de capitales más sofisticados para todos los segmentos de la minería, no solamente los grandes que muchas veces tienen posibilidades de buscar financiamiento en otras latitudes, sino también para otros segmentos, ¿ya? Y justamente el mayor desarrollo de la actividad minera, debido a la demanda que vemos para los próximos 10, 15 años de cobre y otros minerales críticos, necesariamente va a tener en Chile un impacto y una necesidad de desarrollo de mayor infraestructura, mejoramiento de puertos, de pasos fronterizos, de carreteras, de agua desalinizada. Vemos ahí un gran espacio de inversión efectivamente en Chile. Y no sé si en la siguiente pregunta conversaremos sobre Argentina.
Sí, pero
o lo podemos integrar.
Lo dejamos para el final, Argentina, pero la coordinación de los...
La articulación, y creo que, disculpa Guillermo, y creo que parte de esa coordinación efectivamente se ha demostrado en estos días de ChileDay, de cómo tenemos en un ChileDay que pretende promover la inversión no necesariamente al ministro de Hacienda, al ministro de Economía y de Minería, a quien me ha tocado representar, sino que también la ministra de Medio Ambiente, el subsecretario de Obras Públicas. Estamos todos actuando como equipo para lograr esta meta del desarrollo y del desarrollo de mayor minería en el caso de este panel. Y estamos articulándonos fuertemente. Ya nos ha tocado apoyar a algunas compañías, por ejemplo, en algunas situaciones que se han presentado, y existe la conciencia y la necesidad del desarrollo de más minería para el desarrollo del país y la mejora de la calidad de vida. Entonces, somos parte de un equipo y eso consta de manera muy clara en el equipo gobierno.
Actually, I cannot recall, I have been participating in ChileDay since its beginning, and I cannot recall an event where we have the Undersecretary of Energy of the Ministry of Environment, the Undersecretary of Public Works, and Mining all together participating in this same event. So that's a good signal that you will be able to work together. In the past, it was very fragmented, and it's a good signal that you come all together, and because obviously there are topics that you need one to the other to make this happen. For this second round of questions, we want to take a broader view of how the industry is being reshaped on sustainability and inclusion, renewable energy adoption, water management, gender participation, the CO2 pathway, and all these factors working together. Excuse me. So in order to avoid overlap of questions, we have split on the topics, and I would like to add one additional idea. In some previous ChileDays, there was a discussion about the dream that at some point in time, Chilean copper may be traded at a premium, even though it's a commodity. It will be very difficult, but we will be able to produce green copper because of a combination of all these factors, and that at some point in time, markets should pay a premium for a copper that is being produced with all this combination of positive factors for the world. So in order to share this view, Amparo, your view on diversity and how the industry is facing this challenge.
Thank you. Guillermo, maybe before going to that question, may I share a little bit the perspective of Teck, which I didn't in the previous round of questions, because I think it's important to provide some perspective on a Canadian player in Chile. According, and we are all aware of the spectacular situation and the increasing demand on copper and the importance of copper, our company made a couple of years ago a very clear definition. We divest from our energy and coal business and we focus only in copper. And in that process, Chile has played a key role. We built this very big project, Quebrada Blanca, so I know exactly how Mario is facing this process, how difficult it is to build those kind of enormous projects. And I think, and we have been discussing these days about the importance of the Canadian seal. Yesterday we had an opportunity to meet with the Secretary of Parliament, and it was an agreement in the table that the Canadian companies we have been able to bring to Chile not only investment, but also a quality of that investment. So it's not only about the amount of investment, but also that other aspect. So looking forward for the future when Patricio and I are talking about the merged company, which is going to be Anglo Teck. It's going to be based in Vancouver. It's going to be the biggest mining company ever operated and headquarters from Canada. But still the heart of that company is going to be very much connected to Chile because of the operations that both companies have already, but also because of the opportunity of synergies between Collahuasi and Quebrada Blanca. So we are going to be able to see a new district, a very strong district in the region of Tarapacá, and that will bring and continue to bring a lot of impact, positive impact to the region and to the people there. We operate only with renewable energy. Our operation has only use of desalinated water, so we were able even to return the water rights to the state. And we are very focused on social and indigenous engagement. By building QB2, we started a very early process of engagement with indigenous communities. We had 22 agreements with indigenous communities, very similar to the impact benefit agreements that happen in Canada, and also with fishermen unions. So that meant that we were able to build a project of the size of QB2 that was like 4 projects in one, without a single day of stoppage due to any social issue, and the project didn't face any judicial issue also. So I wanted to reinforce the concept and the importance of the connection and how the Canadian mining activity is impactful in Chile. And of course, this is very much connected to your question, which is about diversity. And I believe that we as Chilean and also as players of the industry should be very proud of what we have done in our country. In very few years, the participation of female in the industry has grown. Today, we have 24% of participation, which is even very, very far away from what is happening in other places that we used to look as an objective in the past. We see Canada and Australia not having those numbers. And I think that has been the result of an effort done by the public entities, and I know that the Undersecretary and the Minister already started the Mesa de Mujer y Minería, so there is a strong public component on that. But also all the companies have made decisions in order to increase the participation of women and have a lot of diversity in the industry. The gender diversification is important, but it's not the only one. I think the industry today is more open to bring people with different experiences, different backgrounds, and that is helping to shape an industry that it's more open, more connected to the society, and that brings different experiences, not the very close, only mining approach. And in relation with diversity, I think there are a couple of elements that are very important. First of all, this needs to come from the top to the organization. In our case, our board is a diverse board. The chair of the board, which is going to be the chair of Anglo Teck, is a woman. Our CEO, Jonathan Price, is an ambassador of He4She, which is a UN Women initiative. So there is a very strong perspective of example that is taking place. In the conversations I always have with my colleagues in the industry, we all agree that a very important component of this progress in inclusion is connected to the focus of culture. So you can do a lot of things and change, but if you don't generate a new culture, a more respectful workplace, these changes are not sustainable. And we know that the industry has been very male dominant for decades, so we need to maintain a lot of focus in that. I also believe that technology is a great catalyst for diversification. We see the integrated centers, the remote centers that are far away from the mines. We have people working in Santiago, very far away from our mines, people that is not exposed, for example, to high altitude, and that generates the opportunity to integrate females that have children. So technology has a lot of benefits, but this is also one of those. Yeah. And finally, I think that diversification is not only something that happens within our fences and within our own employees. I think we still have a lot of work to do in relation with the whole value chain, with our contractors, and also with communities. And maybe just to finish, a comment that makes me very proud, and Ambassador and I were able to celebrate around a month ago, 10 years of this program that is called Originarias, that we have in partnership with UN Women, that it's focused in indigenous women in the north of Chile, where we are supporting the development of indigenous women, and more than 8,000 females have been trained and have been supported in their initiatives. So I think we know that today maybe some back push in relation with these topics, and some people don't feel very comfortable or don't want to talk about targets. I think that the industry has discovered, and we all agree on the benefits of bringing more diverse workforce and participation. So I am very optimistic that we will continue increasing and we will reach targets beyond what we have today.
Actually, being this mainly for many years ago a male-oriented industry, last year in ChileDay London, I also had to organize the panel in the mining sector, and we're just the women in the panel.
That's fantastic.
Including a chairman, a CEO, and I was the only. I felt myself as a minority. So it's
minority group.
So it's a okay. Patricio, regarding innovation, artificial intelligence, I had the chance to visit your facilities a while ago, and it's quite impressive. They have a very nice office in the best place location in Santiago. In the top of the tower, there were the miners managing the mine site, which was seen on the mountains. It was quite impressive. I remember talking to one of the guys that were managing the mine, and he said, I'm digging now, and that's what you see on the screen is what I'm doing from here. It's an amazing innovation that you can do mining from very financial style building in Santiago and working in the mine at the top. How are you managing all these new technologies, artificial intelligence, and innovating in the mining sector?
No, absolutely. I think that's a great question. And look, I think the industry has evolved significantly in the last 10 years when it comes down to innovation and technology. It's actually making the industry safer, more productive, more efficient, and more sustainable. So, as I said in the first part of the conversation, I think thinking about the whole value chain, I wanted to start with exploration because, as the Undersecretary mentioned, Chile is in the leading position when it comes down to the resource and reserve of copper, for example. So we hold around 19% of the globally known copper resource and reserves in the world, but we cannot become complacent. When you look at the statistics, the reality is that since the 1990s, the exploration budgets have increased sixfold. However, the success rate to find the new ore bodies has been really, really poor. And maybe that has to do with the fact that ore bodies are more complex, they're deeper, they're probably in very challenging locations. And that's where I think technology will be a key enabler. Actually, we've been working and investing very heavily with Canada in developing that technology to enable the finding of those new large ore bodies that the world needs. Then in operations, I think we've been talking about automation, so the automation levels now in the truck fleets and the drill rig fleets, to your point, Guille, has been, a significant change in the way we operate. Again, we've been able to remove people from the line of fire, like Amparo mentioned. We've been able to actually increase productivity, significantly reduce our costs, unlock production, and again, making it more sustainable because autonomous fleets normally run much better than manned trucks, for example. On the remote operating centers, I think you gave a great example. Same as with Quebrada Blanca, in the case of Los Bronces, we actually operate Los Bronces, which is located over 4,000 meters above sea level from a very nice office, as you mentioned. And I think what's really important is the way you actually do these changes. When we decided to move into autonomy and remote operating centers, we made a very deliberate decision of upskilling and reskilling our workforce. So a drill rig operator that had been at Los Bronces for over 30 years at minus 20 degrees in a night shift, can you imagine those working conditions? Now that person has been upskilled and is a programmer of a system, not a one drill rig. It's a whole system that he or she is able to manage now, and I think that changes the whole perspective about the transformation that artificial intelligence and autonomy is bringing. So the working conditions are very different. These people now arrive home every day. Not sure if their partners are happy that they arrive home every day. I hope so. That's something that we cannot manage. But it's a huge change in the quality of life. I think from those remote operating centers, we've been able to leverage artificial intelligence in a whole different way. So you saw how we're using digital twins to actually make our operations more productive. We're using machine learning to improve our asset integrity across the entire fleet and fixed equipment. We're using now co-pilot agents to actually make the decisions on how should you run a plant, the flotation plant, based on the type of ore and the likes, which is very different to the way we used to do things. And we were talking about a technology actually developed here in Canada with Ambassador yesterday, where the shovel is able to identify the type of ore that you get at the moment that you actually load the material. So I think the whole thing is evolving really, really fast. I mentioned before there is a strong focus on innovation with purpose, and part of that has to do with our sustainability focus. One of the largest environmental liabilities that mining's got is tailing dams. When you look at Chile alone, we've got more than 400 tailing dams active in the country. They hold a lot of water, and as we know, has been one of the major drivers of concerns about mining and our reputation, right? So whether I think we can, this is sustainable over time? Absolutely not. So we've been building this new technology at El Soldado mine in which through a different way of building tailings, we can recover around 85% of the water before it goes into the tailings, so it resolves the issue with water, but also it makes it safer because it's got a smaller footprint, and it's also easier to rehabilitate once the tailings are completed. And I think at some point we discussed, Guille, do we see this industry moving towards a path in which we can operate all our mines from remote operating centers? Absolutely. I mean, we need to look at best practice here. When you look at the oil and gas industry, from a remote operating center in Malaysia, they run all the plants globally, right? And all the only people that goes into those plants are the maintenance crews that go there from time to time. So I think we need to be forward thinking in the way we actually bring this best practice. But also back to talent, to Amparo's point, we need to be forward thinking in the way we build talent. It enables diversity, as you mentioned, Amparo, but I also struggle to see why we cannot attract the best talent in the world. I mean, I struggle to see why we cannot compete for the same talent base that NVIDIAs of the world, the Googles of the world are now, the ChatGPT of the world are now fighting for. I think mining has the ability to actually attract and retain that talent.
And are you training your own people to get to this level of new technologies? Because people probably that comes from a regular university or may not be prepared to run this kind of sophisticated processes.
Absolutely, yes. So, and it's not just the engineers and people from universities, the actual operators.
Right.
So it's operators becoming programmers, it's people that were used to operate in a certain way that now have to, interface with a co-pilot agent. I mean, I struggle with that, to be very honest. So I think you need to provide the training, and it's shifting the paradigm in the way you operate.
Yeah. And Mario, regarding the water usage and the mining sector was one of the main users of underwater natural water on flows that has to compete with the communities. And now, with all this desalination effort, do you think that we are reaching a level where we are stable on these matters, or there's a long way to go still to increase the shift of water from the sea to facilitate the operations of the mine site?
Yeah, that's a very good topic. I confirm, by the way, how nice is the remote center that Patricio owns there in Santiago. Ask him to invite you. In terms of, you all know that water and also energy are very, very important for the mining industry. But having said so, it's important to address like a myth on the amount of water that the mining industry uses. We use 4% of continental water, so we are not even close to be the industry that uses water the most. But having said so, we understand how difficult and how problematic could become the hydric crisis that many places have. And therefore, we have been an important driver to the solution of this desalination plant. At this point, if I am correct, we have operating like 11 desal plants, and many others are going to be built in the following years. As a matter of fact, our project, as I said before, considers a desal plant a big one. And again, we have been working with the developers on trying to make the technology better and better in order to avoid the impact that the desal plant could happen. What we think is that even though the consumption of continental water is not that big in mining industry comparing to others, we will need around 25% more water to the production of mining, and so it's definitely a situation. And actually, for our project, unfortunately, our desal plant won't be ready by 2029, when our environmental permit expires. So we will need to request a provisional extension to continue extracting water from the Ascodan salt flat for a while until our desal plant is ready. And very related to the desal plant is the consumption of energy. You can imagine how much energy you need to pump 2,000 liters per second from the coast to a place that is almost 3,000 meters above sea level. And therefore, we need energy, and again, the mining industry has been an important driver for renewable energy. At this point, probably close to 70% of the energy that is produced in Chile comes from renewable energy. And at the beginning, the mining industry, through PPA, which are power purchase agreement, allow the energy companies to finance this plant in order to provide the energy to the mine. So it's a very important contribution. El Abra, the mine that we operate in the second region, is not absent of this effort. As a matter of fact, we're the first mine that belongs to Freeport that was supplied with 100% of energy that is certified as a renewable one. But even though this, let's say, country effort has been remarkable, it's important to take into consideration that we still need to work a lot to have a more robust system. We need to work in transmission line, in storage, and other. And also, as I was saying, when an important part of your cost is the electricity bill, this is something very important to take into consideration when you will do or you plan to do a big investment for the construction and also for the operation. And unfortunately, in Chile, the prices of energy are significantly higher than in other places. And we see that definitely as a problem. It's an important cost for us. We have been seeing that an important portion of that price that we'll need to pay is not the energy itself. It comes from the systemic costs, which are, in general terms, those that are intended to enhance the stability and the security. And that at this point amounts around 30% of the energy prices. So if we want to keep Chile competitive in terms of mining and other industry, we need to tackle that situation because it creates problems from the competitive standpoint. And again, going back to water, and take it something that Patricio was saying, even though we can get water from the desal plant, we are trying to be efficient with its use, and therefore we are using for some facilities, such as the storage tailing facility, we are going to do thickened tailings, which require less water, gives more stability, and allow you to recirculate more water. And that's something important, not only in terms of water, but also because population is normally concerned about tailings, so we have been able as an industry to give much more certainty, comfort at that regard.
Is there a chance where companies may get together to analyze the more efficient solutions? In a regular industry, the Antitrust Commission will not allow you to get together and create a facility where you all will be getting water supplied together. Is that something that may happen in the future?
You know, Guillermo, I have been saying only nice things about the industry, but probably one of the challenges that we have is to try to build an ecosystem where we can collaborate more with shared infrastructure. Many years ago, when you were building like a mining asset, you would be also building, for instance, the energy plant and the port and other. But now probably we need to have a step forward and trying to find ways in which we can share some infrastructure. Maybe Patricio has a good example of it, right? Thank you.
Orest, copper prices at 6. Probably many investments have been performing quite well today. But you never know when it's the right time to get in or it's too late. What will be your recommendations on the investment side regarding the industry? Is it still the right time to keep investing in the sector as a financial investment? How are you looking seeing the markets?
Yeah, sure. No, thanks for the question. I think really a big driver there is the outlook on the copper market itself and the copper price. You know, our view has shifted in the last few months in that we now see this extended market in deficit. So if I rewind even 2 months ago, the supply-demand outlook for copper was looking like this was going to be a challenging year, i.e. A deficit, but obviously some demand headwinds. But then we got a rash of major supply disruptions that's really changed the dynamic for copper, and Freeport's played a part in that with the challenges at Grasberg, so thank you for that. But we now see, between Grasberg, what's happened in the Congo, Kamoa-Kakula, and some other major mines, including what happened at El Teniente last summer in Chile, the supply side has been really challenged to not only grow copper production, but just to maintain it. And so we're now forecasting about a 350,000 ton deficit in copper in 27. And even 2 months ago, I thought we were moving to a balanced market. So in my view, that does provide an environment where we could see higher for longer copper pricing. It very much is the perfect storm for copper to the upside, in my view, in that the supply side is very challenged despite high pricing. There's not, I'm only aware of a single copper mine in the world that's currently idle, and it's been idle. That's the mine in Cobre Panama. It's not a price issue. It's been a social issue. Our forecasts do assume that mine comes back relatively soon, but there's no idle capacity in copper. Every mine that can be producing is producing. And then from the demand side of things, I've probably never seen a better environment for global copper demand than we do today. For about 20 years, it was really all China driven, but now what we're seeing is actually positive demand growth outside of China from many of the things you spoke about today in terms of the panelists here, in terms of electrification, energy transition, AI data centers, et cetera. And that we have to keep upgrading our demand forecast for copper while we downgrade our supply expectations. And that's why we see the potential for a 1 million ton deficit by end of decade. And that's just because copper mines take so long to build. We're just, in our view, just on the cusp of seeing mining companies commit capital to the next generation of projects, and that was partly because of how challenging and capital intensive these projects are. And QB2 was a good example of just how difficult it is to bring on a copper asset that cost, at the end of the day, almost $10 billion in Chile. And so we do see an environment where mining companies in this high price environment are starting to warm up to new investments, but they're proceeding cautiously. And once they pull the trigger, it's going to take 4 years to build that capacity. And at the same time, the existing production base in copper is declining because of grades. So we see a very robust copper price environment. And in that context, we think from a mining equity perspective, it's still, even though mining equities have performed exceptionally well in the last 2 years on the back of higher copper and other commodity pricing like gold, we still see more upside in mining equities, just given that we see a higher for longer price environment for copper. And things like higher gold pricing, silver pricing, all of that's helping as well, and it's helping to offset some of the cost challenges, inflation challenges from higher diesel and other energy inputs here. We published a note this morning that just talked about what the mining equities are pricing in from a copper perspective, and today they're pricing in near enough to spot price of copper, but that's actually looks relatively attractive to where these equities have traded. Last year, the copper miners traded at a 15% premium to copper, and they've traded at about a 20% premium over the last 3 years. So the fact that they're trading only at par tells me that there's likely more upside in the mining equities, and obviously several of them have major assets in Chile and are really the crux of the growth for many of these companies.
And this idea that we may have a copper with a premium, it's difficult but markets are demanding for products that has a clean CO2 path, and it's too crazy to think that at some point in time, copper that comes from certain processes will have a premium.
It's theoretically possible, but I think it'll still take a long time for the market to realize that. It's really difficult when you have a commodity to be able to extract a premium for a commodity that has all the environmental benefits versus other jurisdictions, but customers tend to just pay the price in terms of the commodity price. So in theory, it's possible, but I think it'll take time.
And can I comment on that? I think that's a very interesting question. Do I believe that the way Chile produces copper is different to other jurisdictions? Absolutely, yes. I mean, for the same reasons that we just spoke today, right? Do I think it deserves a green copper premium? Absolutely. Do I think it's going to happen anytime soon? Perhaps not. I don't think so. And this brings back memories from my past life as a trader, because I actually had to instigate a conversation about getting a green premium because of the way copper was produced. And it was really interesting because you spoke to your customer, and the customer would say, I'm willing to pay a premium as long as my customer is willing to pay the premium for me. Right. So it's a pass-through, basically. Yeah. And it all ends up with us as consumers, right? So the same way that we, I'm sure, willing to pay an extra $1 for fair trade coffee, right? Because you know it's traceable, it's fair.
Right.
The question is, are you willing to pay $100 more for an iPhone if you know where the copper is coming from? And are you willing to pay $1,000 more for a Tesla if you know where the copper is coming from? So I think it's a societal problem more than a markets problem. So it's probably a bigger shift in paradigm. I think eventually it may happen to your point, but I think it's going to take time.
Yeah. We have just a few minutes for you, Álvaro, and I want to address the issue on the synergies that we may have with Argentina, with working together. It's a reality that Argentina has very large reserves of minerals to be exploited, that Chile is almost on the border of Argentina compared to where they will have to go to reach with their product for the rest of the world. Do you see anything happening that we may have synergies working together, creating a hub for the mining sector together with Argentina in the near future?
Por supuesto. Quisiera aquí citar como base de lo que puede orientar nuestro trabajo en este futuro. Se ha hablado mucho de dos triángulos, uno del triángulo del litio, otro Sesco nos comentaba en su semana, Jorge, que está sentado ahí en primera fila, sobre el triángulo del cobre, y creemos que efectivamente se nos presenta una gran oportunidad para desarrollar la extracción de esos minerales críticos en conjunto con los otros países. La experiencia de Argentina nació además de un casi conflicto que tuvimos con esa nación, y este tratado da respuesta a eso, de que la mejor manera que tenemos como países hermanos de prolongar una buena relación es mediante el desarrollo de ambas naciones, y es también lo que nos une a Canadá en esta relación larga. Entonces creemos que ese es el camino de desarrollarnos, y necesariamente, como señalas, el desarrollo de la minería no solo en Argentina, sino que también en otras naciones vecinas, va a necesitar necesariamente del paso por puertos chilenos, el desarrollo de carreteras chilenas, agua desalinizada chilena, infraestructura energética también. Y en ese sentido hemos querido darle total urgencia a esta materia. La semana pasada estuvimos en San Juan, en la Feria Minera Argentina, nos reunimos con el secretario de Minas Lucero de Argentina, con el gobernador de San Juan, y para manifestar justamente esta intención de que es este desarrollo en conjunto el que nos puede hacer estrechar cada vez más los lazos entre los países. Reactivamos en ese sentido el Tratado Binacional Minero con Argentina. Tenemos una próxima reunión el 7 de julio en Buenos Aires, que era una reunión que hace un buen tiempo no se había desarrollado. Entonces tenemos puestos todos los incentivos para desarrollar una industria conjunta con Argentina en la extracción de minerales críticos, la intención de desarrollarlo con otros países vecinos, pero también de buscar instancias en que Chile efectivamente sea un hub no solamente en temas de infraestructura, sino también de proveedores y de muchos otros servicios que se puedan prestar desde Chile hacia otros países.
Actually, a positive thing that is currently happening within our region is that for different reasons in the last few years, between Argentina and Chile, between Chile and Bolivia, relationships were not existing almost. And in the last couple of months, we have seen our Minister of Foreign Affairs visiting Argentina, meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bolivia, signing an agreement in Santa Cruz, meeting with the Foreign Affairs Minister of Peru, even though I think he already quit, but that's a peculiarity of Peru, that authorities moved fastly. But for the first time in many years, we have a situation between Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, hopefully Peru as well, and even Colombia in the future, working together with the same focus of development and trying to cooperate between our countries, which unfortunately has not been a situation that has happened in the last 5 or 10 years. So that's another opportunity that we today as a country are facing. So time is 0, so we are getting to the end of this panel. So we want to thank you very much. Thank you, Undersecretary González, to come to this event. Patricio, Amparo, Mario, and Orest. We think we try to do an active and interesting panel for the audience as well. And now we will invite you to a brief break, and we will reconvene here in about 20 minutes to continue with the panel on energy in this same room. So thank you very much, and hope you enjoy this conversation.